Hey everybody. I hope that everyone had a great start to the trading week on yesterday and then allowed it to carry over today, with today being like an official business day. So quite a few things in the news to cover. And so I'll just go ahead and get started. Um, so Friday, Supreme Court Justice Ruth Ginsburg passed away, and she um, was a pioneer, a leader in lots of different areas when it comes to law being um, kind of rewritten, kind of put forth for a lot of different issues and topics in the United States. So as Okay. So, going forward, we're going to be hearing a lot about her seat that is now open. They're trying to decide now if they want to um, nominate, vote, and replace um, or put someone in her seat, not necessarily like replace her, but put someone in her seat before the election or afterwards. There's a little bit of controversy right now between the Republicans and Democrats. One isn't there, but this time it's because the person who Obama nominated got overlooked, and they're trying to put someone completely new in that seat. So the thing now is, well, if Biden gets the seat, kind of know that they're going to go back to Obama's nomination. If the Republicans get the seat, they're going to try to go ahead and put the nominee that they have in the seat. They're trying to do it before the election because obviously you don't know what's going to happen in November because a lot of the polls are split. But a lot of people, I realize, don't understand the ramifications of this. So there are lots of cases right now, major cases sitting before the Supreme Court that have to be voted on and that have to be judged, talked about. One of those being the efficacy of the Affordable Care Act and parts of it. Um, so it's important that her seat gets filled so that these things can be voted on. There's 9 justices on the Supreme Court because odd number, tiebreaker, and then if you have to go back and redecide on certain issues, if someone's undecided, it kind of gives you a leg because it's an odd number. But also, whenever we're thinking about these seats, when someone is nominated and they hold a Supreme Court justice seat, they have that seat until they die, until they resign, or until they're removed. And it takes a lot to remove a court justice. So once you have that seat, if you stay pretty squeaky clean, you're going to keep that seat for life. What that also means is that a lot of the ideals, fundamentals, thought processes, mindsets from whenever you got the seat, that age that you got the seat, even from your life, you carry those through. So both of the nominations so far that I've seen that Trump has, they're both Roman Catholic conservatives. So keep that in mind when we're talking about Roe v. Wade, birth control, abortion rights, pro-choice, pro-life, because all that stuff's going to come up. Um, and the parts of the Affordable Care Act that were left in place that talk about birth control, those sorts of things. Those things are going to keep coming back up, um, especially now that her seat could possibly be filled with someone who's super conservative. Um, the other thing I wanted to talk about is the type of cases that they hear about. The cases that the Supreme Court hears and oversees, they're cases that aren't taken lightly. These are like ethical issues. These are major social issues, issues that would affect each and every one of us. Um, and they have the right and they can determine whether or not certain cases fit to be able to be used as evidence or proof towards another case, and then also in overturning certain things. So I just want you guys to keep that in mind as you hear things in the news about Supreme Court justices filling the seat, what it means to you. It means everything, because decisions that, you take, I don't want to say take lightly, but things you don't think about on an everyday, every second basis, they have decisions over, and then it will affect you for as long as it's in place, possibly a lifetime, because a lot of these people hold seats for that long. Um, let's see. I kind of briefly hit on it Friday, but this hurricane season has been crazy. We're currently in the Greek alphabet. I think we're on beta or delta. I don't know. We're on like we're at the beginning of the Greek alphabet, and I know for sure we're at beta. So, what does that mean for oil prices? Not a whole lot, just because I told you guys whenever one of the later letters of the regular names for the hurricane season was coming through, they switched over production. So they switched over production to natural gas. Well, they had to shut some of that down. So natural gas prices are like under $2. Um, anyway, prices dropped really, really low for natural gas. The implications of that, um, obviously, is getting colder. So we're getting towards that time of the year where we need natural gas. The supply is getting really low. So the prices are going to shift dramatically at some point in time for natural gas, because we use it in and for so many different things. We also use oil for a lot of different things as well, but natural gas for sure, because that's what they switched over to. I had someone ask me why, and I can't remember if I actually answered it or not, but they switched over to natural gas in the Gulf because if a hurricane or strong winds or a rogue wave were to hit a rig and you have natural gas being pumped, you don't get the environmental impact that you would from oil. Oil would pretty much destroy the whole ecosystem. Gas would pretty much float to the top and you'll get it evaporated off. Some gases that sit pretty heavy, they have ways of extracting those out of the water, so it wouldn't be quite as impactful to the environment as oil. So I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to start talking about the Forex Factory calendar. I'm pretty sure I'm going to think of some other things as I'm going through the calendar, but we'll get started. So today, I told you guys this month was going to be very volatile, was going to be pretty impactful whenever it came to Forex, when it came to the stock market, when it comes to the election. If you guys, I don't know if it's up on YouTube, but if it is, or if you were on the call and took notes, I suggest you reference back to the call from January when I told you guys what was going to happen at this point in time of the year, because it's happening. Markets are super volatile. Markets are all over the place. Talks have switched from COVID and have switched from us fighting other countries to now we're fighting within our own country, Democrats versus Republicans, black, white, state versus state, over simple things now. So last week we had our Fed numbers that came out from Jerome Powell. Stephen Mnuchin and Jerome Powell are going to be testifying this week. So today we got a speech from Jerome Powell, and then he also decided he wanted to add a little tidbit in after the market closed. So for those of you who are able to look at aftermarket trading for the stock market, you saw that even once the stock market technically, like quote unquote, closed for retail traders, it kept moving because aftermarket trading doesn't stop until 7:30 p.m. So he was moving markets. after the market closed, talking about interest rates and talking about the forward guidance for the Fed. Luckily for us, we get speeches from Jerome Powell this whole week. Yay. Um, so we'll get speeches from him tomorrow, Wednesday, and Thursday. We'll get speeches from Bank of England on tomorrow. We get Swiss franc news on Thursday, and then also Stephen Mnuchin will have a speech on Thursday. So this week will give us lots of volatility, lots of talking points going forward, and talking points not only for this week, not only for the Zoom calls, but going forward for the rest of the year, next year, and the next 2 to 3 years. We'll have stuff to talk about because these testimonies, these speeches that we're having, that had last week and are having this week, are things that we're going to have to reference. To tell you how important some of these speeches are, I literally went back in my notes from last November and was referencing conversations, speeches, testimonies that Jerome Powell was having then, comparing them to now, looking at how much the Fed has shifted its stance on monetary policy. It's amazing what COVID has done, because we went from we're not going to drop our rates below 2 to now we're at 0. We were at the point last year, if you were with us on the Zoom call, we talked about recession. COVID literally pushed the U.S. economy into the deep end. And these things are things that you want to be listening out for in the Fed. They're not going to come right out and say recession. It'll be things like start talking about negative interest rates, or inching the overnight rate closer to 0, like 0.05. I think it's 0.1 right now. Talking about inflation, and when we're listening for the talks about inflation, what you're really wanting to hear is, especially if they're wanting to talk about a recession without saying recession, talking about how our inflation rate is over target, or how we're at target, but the economy still needs some adjusting. Things like that are the Fed's way of talking about recessions without panicking people, because what I saw in the market today was a lot of panic. So this past Friday was the market's Halloween, aka was like triple witching Friday. So there were 4 different types of options that expired this past Friday, which is why it's called that. It only happens 4 times a year, and pretty much happens once a quarter. And when that happens, that gives people a chance to reassess their portfolio, figure out what they're going to get into or get out of. So right now, a lot of people are looking forward to December, because December is the next quadruple witching. It's also the next major options month left in this year. So I'm looking forward to it because of those reasons. But the other thing that quadruple witching does for the market is it gives people a chance to get cash and then actually listen to the news. Because when you're trading options and when you're in long-term trades, you're not really focused on what's going on, because you're just holding for the long term. You know you're going to let your options exercise, so you don't care. So either you took profit or you let your options exercise on Friday. Now you can pay attention to what's going on. Between losing a chief Supreme Court justice and now focusing on the fact that we're still having some not only economic but business related issues with China because of TikTok. They didn't really appreciate the deal that we came up with for the TikTok buyout, and we're still dealing with them with trades and tariffs. Those things aren't in the news. But those are still issues that we're having with China. They put sanctions on Iran. So all of these little bitty things are building up. So in the mind of investors now, it's like, well, we're having all these issues with these countries who don't necessarily like us. Where is this going to put us? And what's funny and ironic is that the UN just celebrated the 75th year of us not having a war, or the major economies having a war with each other. And I'm like, you say that now and then watch what happens. Like, we know how this year started out. We started out this year bombing people. They didn't talk about it a lot in the news, but we started out this year bombing the Middle East. And they started out the year hitting our military bases that are overseas. So all of these things impact each other. Um, so carry over that news to Monday, and you have stocks that aren't performing well because people sold off on Friday, or now people are trying to sell the stocks that accidentally exercise. So that's 100 shares per contract. Um, Getting scared out of the market because of the news that they hear. So you end up triple witching Fridays pretty much lead to a gloomy Monday. Um, it's rare that you have a Monday after a triple witching Friday that is decent. Um, it just happens that way because you get people that get scared out of or sell out of the market to take profits from whatever they capture in their trades. All right, so all of that still leads back to Jerome Powell, I promise. So whenever we're talking about all of that stuff that I just said, those are things that Jerome Powell talks about, but not so much the options, but the news. Those things, whenever he testifies, if you listen to the congressmen and women who ask him questions, those are things he's going to be answering questions about tomorrow. Those are things that he's going to be talking about. He's going to be testifying. So it's not a speech. It's not something that's going to be 1-2 hours. This can go on for 5 hours. So you can be in a trade, you can be in a USD trade prior to New York Open at 9:30. Be in the trade and be fine. Be fine at 10:30 whenever he starts talking, but 12 o'clock, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, your trades, like, you can see the market, not necessarily your trades, but you can see the market all over the place because of a simple question that he answers. And to give you a heads up, it tends to be the Congress people from, well, I'll name her name first. Maxine Waters tends to disrupt things. Um, Congress people from New Mexico, Nevada, and Colorado. I don't know why, but anytime they ask a question, it's something random, it's out of the box, and it's only for their particular group. And I don't know what it is about the Fed president that's in that area, but they don't ever reference their questions to them. They always reference their big questions to Jerome Powell. And Jerome Powell also owes the congresswoman from the Midwest a answer to a question that she asked him about housing and housing reform. So he has to answer that question on this time, and if he doesn't, I'm pretty sure he's going to hear about it. I know I skipped over the GBP, but that speech is pretty much going to be centered around the UK's trade, Brexit, and the monetary stability of the Bank of England. The monetary stability right now hinges on having a decent exit. That decent exit is hinged right now on, believe it or not, Theresa May. I thought I was done talking about her, but she's popped up again because she doesn't like how Boris Johnson is doing things. And my thought process is, well, you had your chance and you couldn't do it. So vote and shut up. It's another easy way to put that. New Zealand dollar, this is their cash rate news, the same thing we did last week with Jerome Powell. They're doing this week. I expect for them to keep their cash rate the same because they dropped their rates heavily this year. We haven't really seen how much the impact of them dropping their rates is going to help or hurt their economy. So I expect for them to keep their rates the same. Wednesday, we get manufacturing and services news from um, Europe, from the EU. So we get it for France, we get it for Germany. France right now, if you have seen anything in the news about France, you know that they're talking heavily about Brexit deals. They want this deal to get done as swiftly as possible. And I feel like at this point, France wants something out of it because they've been sitting on the burner for so long, not saying anything. Um, but they're urging sorry, they're urging Boris Johnson to pretty much go ahead and get this deal done, but don't let it be a hard Brexit. So we pretty much get services news for the EU going on to almost about 5 o'clock on Wednesday morning. Then we get manufacturing news and services news for the US. So that news is going to be affecting the volatility of the EU and GU pairs. Then we get our testimony from Jerome Powell, which starts at 10 o'clock on Wednesday. And then we get oil news that comes out about 30 minutes later. So we'll be paying attention to both of those. Thursday, we get Swiss franc news. Don't get a whole lot of Swiss franc news ever. So that news is going to be very good to look at. One thing I want you guys to notice is their current interest rate. Their current interest rate is negative 0.75%, which means that their rates are already negative. If you don't know much about the Swiss economy, I will tell you that their economy is very stable. There's not a whole lot that just really happens and or comes out as far as the news in that part of the world. That country's currency is considered to be a safe haven because their interest rates are negative and because of the state of their economy. They have a very stable economy. Employment's relatively stable. I say relatively because of COVID. When you think about best healthcare systems, best benefits for employees, best lifestyle, like all those types of things, the Swiss actually rank 1 or 2 in the world for having like the best when it comes to the quality of life of their citizens. There are other countries that you might notice that have a negative interest rate, like the euro. They are not a safe haven. The euro is not a safe haven. I think their interest rate is negative zero point 0.1, but it's not a safe haven because their economy is not stable. They have a lot of countries that make up that one currency, or they have a lot of countries that use that one currency. So the EU, the European Union, the European Central Bank, it's not just one country, it's a group of countries, it's 18 countries. So they have 18 countries to contend with, debts to contend with, and so it's not a safe haven. Japan's interest rate is negative, but they are borderline being a safe haven. They've almost lost their safe haven status. So anyway, I said that because if you look at interest rates for other countries, don't just automatically assume that it's a safe haven because the interest rate's negative. So in addition to that, on Thursday, we get unemployment claims. We get another speech from the Bank of England. We get testimonies and speech from Jerome Powell, Stephen Mnuchin. And on Friday, we get private sector net borrowing from GDP. We get core and regular durable goods for the U.S. We also, they're sprinkled throughout the week, but Fed member Williams is going to be speaking. They're not red or orange because A, he's not chair, and then 2, Jerome Powell's already speaking. So whenever another Fed member is speaking in the same week as Jerome Powell, especially when they're speaking after, they're always going to be yellow because they're pretty much going to be corroborating or giving their own independent opinion to what Jerome Powell says, but it's going to be agreeing. So they're going to pretty much be telling you how they came up with their decision personally. So it's not going to be opposing. Had this been last June, had this been like last May or June, it possibly could have been orange because the Fed was not agreeing then. Their votes were very much split down the middle. Also, the other thing that is not on this Forex Factory calendar that happens on Friday is Bitcoin options expire. So cryptocurrencies have options. They expire on Friday. What does that mean? People who are in buys or sell contracts, they either are going to let those options exercise on Friday or they're going to take profits and get out of the market. I typically don't pay attention to cryptocurrency options solely because I'm either looking at the crypto itself or I'm looking at it in Forex. So the only thing I'm going to say is there could be some volatility in cryptocurrencies on Thursday and Friday. Thursday because it's the day before. A lot of people don't want to wait to the day of when their options expire, especially if they're not going to exercise, because waiting that whole 24-hour period means you lose 27% of your profits. So a lot of people aren't going to wait that 24 hours if they aren't going to let those options exercise. So pay attention to cryptos this week. All right. So I think I'm done with the news. I say I think because there was a lot that I knew I needed to cover. If I forgot something, I'll put it in the chat and I'll put it in WhatsApp if I forgot something. But if you guys have any questions, I don't know if Mr. Levels has it available for you guys to unmute. If so, you can ask your questions. If you can't unmute, you can put it in the chat and I will answer your questions in the chat.